Welcome back to another episode of Baxter's Buzz. I am your host, Baxter E. Hall. Today, I have a special guest with me, Erika Monae from the Erika Monae Group. How you doing, E?
I'm good. How are you?
Good.
Baxter's Buzz. I love it.
Yeah, welcome. Yeah, we've been talking about kind of connecting this way, have some conversations. You and I are networking and doing a bunch of things, projects and that. But I wanted to kind of dig a little bit more into sort of the origins of the Erika Monae Group, learn, get a little insight, and then yeah, just kind of bounce around. So why don't we get started? First of all, I have to ask all of my parents this. Tell me how you and the children are doing with this virtual learning.
Oh
You guys
gosh.
hanging in there?
It we're hanging in there for virtual learning. I mean, with COVID, we're trying to stay out the way.
Yeah.
And everything. Virtual learning is a struggle. I'm not gonna even hold you up. It is a struggle. My son, who's 8, needs to be in school. He needs that attention. Um, and it's, I mean, kids are just used to it. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Kids love structure. So once they get in the groove of structure and what school is like, that's what they hope for. And my son apparently is an engaged student in person. So online, it's he's trying to be engaged, but then he's always asking for this, like meeting up with the teachers in like their office hours all the time and not saying anything. So then they've reached out and was like, we love the fact that he's engaging and wants to talk to us and have questions. But then there's times where he just sits there.
Mm,
And so I'm like, yeah, buddy, they got a life too. They got to eat.
right. Right.
And my daughter, which sucks for her, is that she started middle school in this
Mm,
virtual world. So sixth grade for her, I mean, has been
yeah. Yeah.
and just learning in that transition from elementary to middle school virtually
Sure.
is a very, very hard transition because she thinks she can just turn in her assignments and think that she'll get credit. And I'm like, your work got to be of quality and correct
Right.
for you to get the grade that you need to get. And when it comes back and it's like, yeah, you got a D. She's like, how did I get a D on this assignment? Did you check your work? I just submitted it. Okay. So we got to go back.
Right.
So that transition
Right. And
of
not having
just
that
knowing,
that
yeah, and
person, yeah, the teachers in front of you. Yeah.
mhm, it's
Yeah.
different, So that it's challenging. It is very, very challenging. I look forward to the day they're able to go back in person because my kids are very much so like me. They love connecting. They love having those relationships with people. Very social butterflies
Yeah.
in school, and they're very smart. But that connection needs to happen. And I mean, we all need it
Yeah.
on a human level. Like we're created that way, but those babies need it.
Yeah.
They definitely, definitely need it. So as soon as it's safe to do so, I will give my kids the boot to go
Yeah.
back to school.
Yeah. No, my baby girl is in second grade and she's the same way. Very social. Um, and I just want to say to you and all the other parents, you guys hang in there. But also the kids are dealing with a lot of challenges too, right? Sometimes we could just look at it from our aspect and not really appreciate or identify with their struggles. Like you said, my
Right.
daughter is, has a very similar brain as me, and her mom is very social too. And you miss that. You miss that interaction. She's doing well, but there's more to school than the work, right? It's that.
Absolutely. They
Yeah,
need this. This is part
yeah,
of their growth and development.
exactly. So hang in there. I feel like
Yeah, you
I gotta,
too.
I have to do like a mental health check with all my parents, man, because it's
That's a whole nother episode on the podcast.
right, right. As the old folks say, it's more than a notion.
Right.
This stuff is, it can take a lot out of you. So and we're gonna definitely talk about the Erika Monae Group, but talk about your transition um, from being in the corporate world, like your position in the corporate world, and then kind of what spurred on the idea to even start the Erika Monae Group, and how you landed here.
Wow. How much time I got? um, let's see. So it has been a journey for sure. And I guess, I'm going to try my best to kind of make it condensed, because the journey to get to Erika Monae Group has been a journey, definitely. So when I received, I'm going to go back to undergrad. When I received my bachelor's degree, in accounting. And as soon as I received the first phone call to say, hey, Erika, here's your first job. Here's how much it's paying, so on and so forth. When I got that call, just like any person graduating from college, hearing that is exciting, right? Life-changing. And for me, it was bigger than that, because at that moment, I realized exactly what I wanted to do. And what I wanted to do with my life, with my career, was to make a positive impact, have a positive influence on the livelihoods of people at work. And it dinged on me that I wanted to be the person on the other end of the phone call telling people, you got this job. Here's how much it's paying. Oh, by the way, you got these benefits too. Like, I wanted to be that person. I grew up seeing all the adults around me never really have a passion for their job. It was, I got to go to work. All right, I got to go deal with this mess. I'll be back. Like, no one really had any joy at work. And we spent too much time at work to be in the dumps, entirely too much time. We give too much of ourselves to be in the dumps and not have any satisfaction and not have joy. So I wanted to change that. So that's where it started for me. So I said, okay, I got to open up my own business. I got to have to do something. I have to get into staffing. Like, I had all these different ideas. I spent about 3 years in accounting and finance before I actually made the transition into staffing. Then I made the transition into staffing. So I was recruiting, doing business development. So just like many HR professionals, a lot of us start out in recruiting. And I think it's very, very important, because it definitely puts us in a position to see things from we're able to kind of identify, okay, here's the scorecard. And oftentimes people don't think that HR has a scorecard. There are things that we measure as well. And recruiting is kind of that first introduction, in my opinion, to that. So got to do that, business development, like I said, and then transition into that. And then I started to get into roles where I was in full HR generalist type of roles, where I'm handling HR from top to bottom. So as my career grew, I was able to take on positions that were very strategic. So the more I was in HR, the more progressive and I would say transformational my work was. My business partners went from being the general managers to VP C-suites. And so I did that on purpose, because I wanted to open up my own company. I was so focused on getting these key experiences. And I remember telling someone, like, I wasn't focused on the title. I wanted a certain kind of experience. So when I decided to go out on my own, I had that experience. It wasn't for me, the title. It was, I have this knowledge, and they can't take that away from me, anybody. So once I remember when I was working at Pepsi, I was coaching a leader, and I remember him telling me, Erika, thank you so much. And I was like, oh, you're welcome. And he's like, no, like, this really helped me. You have no idea how much this has helped me. And I'm thinking it's just my job. I'm HR, I'm helping people. I'm all like, cool, tell my boss, like, it was just like, great. And he's like, no, Erika, this is not your job. Because I told him, like, oh, it's my job, no problem. He's like, no, this is not your job. And I was like, okay. Sometimes you're just like, okay, thanks. And I didn't know what to say, but it stayed with me. It resonated with me. And I didn't understand, like, well, what was I doing if I wasn't doing my job? Was I going above and beyond? Because I wanted to tell my boss. And I realized that I was coaching, and I was coaching from my heart to his heart. And it went beyond the organization in terms of the level of insight and development that he took away from me. And I didn't realize I had that kind of impact. And so when that light bulb came on, I was trying to figure out, okay, God, what do you want me to do with this?
Yeah.
And of course, I still wanted to have my own little HR consulting business because it went from staffing to now HR consulting. And I just kept praying on it, trying to figure out what it is that, you know, God wanted me to do with it. And it was one day at work, I remember it was almost as if like it was cloud at work, and then all of a sudden light came through that this is where he wanted me to shine my light. Because sometimes some people figure out like, you know, my whole purpose in life isn't in my job that I do day to day or my 9 to 5 at work. It's something outside of that. And what he showed me was that, hey, this is where I need you to shine your light. Yeah. This is where I need you to be. And so I'm like, okay, what do you want me to do with it? So that's how I ended up gravitating towards coaching more than anything else. And so when I decided to launch the Erika Monae Group, I wanted to focus on those two concepts because my education and training is in HR and OD. That's what I know. So there was no way I was going to give that up because I got student loan debts that need to be paid. So yes, I need that to be incorporated with the training and money that I've spent to receive this education. But also with the coaching aspect and learning more about myself and my own strengths and what truly makes me valuable, what truly makes me unique. There was a point in my HR career, I could never articulate my strengths. I could never articulate, you know, the value that I'm bringing to the table. And for most people, they want to know things that are very measurable. They want to know things that are very tangible. And for me, it's a lot of soft skills that are my strengths. And it's relationship building, building that trust. How do you measure building trust unless someone says, okay, I'm going to interview 5 leaders and ask them, do they trust you? You know what I mean? So
let me stop you there because that was actually a question I was going to get to. I mean, it's a perfect segue. So like me being in a sales and like consultant role, like I've worked with HR pros for 15 years and really have worked closely with them, you know, ensuring that I have a good understanding of sort of what they're dealing with, what they're struggling with. And one of the things I've heard time and time again is how do you properly balance the things that are measurable in HR versus those intangible things that the things that you can't measure but are so important to the people that you serve, you know, the employees within a particular organization.
So a way I think to measure it or to give it some sort of weight, the way in which the hard skills are kind of weighted, because when we're thinking communication, when we're thinking relationship building, the organization as a whole needs to at least value those sort of things. So the things that require you to use your soft skills, organization should be putting it out there saying, hey, we value this stuff. So when organizations say we value integrity and teamwork, right? Those are, you know, some values of some organizations. So if you value teamwork, what does it mean to be on the team? What does that mean? Define teamwork. And what you'll find isn't that this person has a degree from Yale. It's going to be more so of how their ability to collaborate. Is going to be their ability to communicate with intention. It's going to be those things. So how do you measure that? That takes time. It takes observation. It takes honesty and transparency because, you know, we would love to toot our own horns, but then also we're afraid to do that because we don't want to come across as, you know, they're just so cocky, you know, they have the biggest ego in the room. So we tend to dial back. And oftentimes we don't need to talk about the specifics of our strengths. We just need to operate let me get this out right. We need to operate in our authenticity just to showcase who we are. And if you do that, it's going to shine. It's going to come across naturally. Yeah. So we just have to learn how to get to that point. But the way it's measured is the way in which you've impacted people. And you want them to say, hey, I know she can do this. If it If it's a matter of people coming together and needing to collaborate, I know the person. If this is a person that we need to get the job done quickly, I know I can get this person. So it's just a matter of putting yourself in a position where people are recognizing and you can see that.
Yeah, yeah. So talk about when EMG started, and then talk about some of the things that you're doing for your clients right now.
Man, so when EMG started, it was before COVID. So a lot of the work that I did was some was virtual, some was in person. But when I started my business, my whole goal, honestly, was to work in corporate America for 5 years, build the credibility, the stability, and everything, and then go off and just be on my own in hopes, again, that I've built the stability to do so. COVID hit, changed the whole game. March of 2020, as we all know, it blew up. The economy blew up the world, right? So my job left, COVID hit, and it was like, what do I do? Yeah. So I was in a very not unique position, because a lot of people in our country and in the world were in the position where they were unemployed and trying to figure some things out. And so praying about it and trying to figure out, all right, how we're going to do this. Should I, move forward and finding another position, or should I move forward and, making this a priority? And, after some prayer, I needed to make it a priority, because I know that God's given me this talent and this gift. And so I'm making this a priority. So when I used to talk to my clients before and after COVID, they hated networking. My clients would always tell me that, I look good on paper, but I don't really have a network to show for it. Oftentimes when you are a leader and when you're growing in your career, people want to know who you know. People want to learn what you've learned. So how do you share that if you have no one to share that with, if you have no one to advocate for you? So I would encourage networking, and they hated small talk. So I created networking on purpose because of that. They didn't have a safe place to connect and create authentic relationships with people in their professional network, because they just felt like, everybody's fake. We've put up this facade for so long that when we do our elevator pitch, it's so salesy that no one truly can say, I know who this person is. I want to get to know this person. And so that has become one of the things that I'm not going to say I've been known for now, but people ask me so many questions about networking. And in all honesty, I thought I was helping like a few people, a little bit of people, this group here, and come to find out everyone's like, no, this is an issue for everybody. I need you to talk about it.
Yeah.
So, and then I found that a lot of people that are in sales whose roles depend on building relationships are struggling, especially right now in the virtual space. Because this is new to everybody. And so how do you make the genuine, authentic connections that can lead to a sale? And most of the time, I remember talking to someone, and I would remember sharing with them that someone that I know that's in the financial service industry said, Erika, I tried to network, and I just introduced myself. I said my name, said my company. I didn't say anything else, because they cut me off and said, oh, I'm all right. I already got a financial guy. I don't need, just cut him off. Yeah. And didn't have anything else to say after that. And so he was kind of stopped dead in his tracks and didn't know what to do next. And it is hard for people to build these relationships, especially when you have those types of roles, and you're really trying to just build relationships and make a connection in hopes that it leads to a sale. But it's challenging. So I've been, trying to help people in that area of, hey, yes, I'm a recruiter. Yes, I'm in sales, but I'm not trying to give you the salesy pitch. I just want to connect because, hey, either A, we got good energy, we have things in common. So networking on purpose are bringing like-minded professionals together to authentically connect on a human level, and not just because I'm in HR, you're in, sales or benefits, and maybe we could partner and may make sense later. You know what I mean? So I'm interested in speaking to you from my heart to your heart at the end of the day.
Well, I think that part of it is there's a lot of self-centered people, right? and they don't understand that you have to sort of give what you want and to get it in return, right? Everybody wants to take what they want, but nobody wants to give it, right? So um, whether it's salespeople, we've all been to these networking things where it's just like, okay, you take 2 minutes to talk about you, and I'll take 2 minutes to talk about me, and then you take 2 minutes, and then one of us will be, pulled away by someone else that we know, or we hope we get pulled away because we're not there's no connection there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Talk about the transition that you had to make between, or the transition from the in-person networking events that you were putting on, and how you've had to transition to this virtual space since COVID.
So networking on purpose, when it was in person, I wanted to create a vibe, have a whole experience for people, right? And how do you keep that momentum going when you've had 2 successful events, because it was January and February? And how do you keep that momentum going virtually when you're not able to break bread? Like, I had food at my events. I love food. So, I think that's always a good thing to have. But it was very, very challenging because March and April of this year, I didn't have networking on purpose because I was trying to figure out my life, and then also trying to figure out if this is still going to add value, if people are still going to find interest in even doing networking on purpose, for a purpose, virtually.
Yeah.
And for me, learning more about Zoom, learning more about what was taking place and transitioning over to the virtual world and how it's making sense for people, it kind of gave me confidence that I could do it. But in terms of the structure of my event and my approach to it, it was really taking a leap out on faith.
Yeah.
It really was. There was nothing else outside of doing my research on Zoom, getting feedback from other people on how they've attended virtual meetings. Because I remember my discovery of hearing that, oh yeah, Zoom has breakout rooms. I was like, what? So it was just after learning, what I was capable of doing from a virtual standpoint, from a behind the scenes standpoint, to make sure that it can flow. Everything else was a leap of faith. And I know in May, when I brought it back virtually, I had almost 30 people attend Networking on Purpose virtually. And at first I was like, is this good? Is this bad? Because in person, when I had between like 20 to 25 people. So when I had it virtually, I'm like, this is great, but I'm afraid. I'm like, you're seeing me all the time. And so it was just a different feel for me because I'm not the one to always raise my hand to be in the camera all the time. You know what I mean? People are still telling me, Erika, you need to put a video out. You need to do this. You need to do that. So Networking on Purpose, it was like gallery view, or you had the speaker view and you just see me. That's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a lot. And then to carry this brand, you're trying to keep up, and people are like looking at you like, go ahead, I'm listening.
Well, first of all, you do a fantastic job.
Oh, thank you.
And I know that you're humble, so I'll say this for you. While you were trying to decide kind of what to do, sort of, jumping in with both feet, or sort of, you've been recruited, people have been reaching out to you to kind of go back into that corporate space, and you stepped out on faith and really went full steam ahead. And everyone hasn't had the privilege of having those offers, right? But you possess a skill set that's still really sought after. And the other thing is the networking piece. It's a safe space. The events are, and I've directly benefited from meeting folks from these events. So I think that people see the importance of it. It's just now it just looks a little bit differently. And for some that aren't as social, you know, like you said, we're constantly on camera. It's sometimes it's a little more difficult to connect, but there's still opportunity there, and you found a really good sort of way to balance that.
Thank you.
Kudos to you, man.
That was nice. Thank you. Oh, I'm here for all the mushy moments. Thank you. I appreciate it. I really do try. My goal is to be as intentional as possible with my life. You know what I mean? Especially everything that I'm doing with EMG and networking on purpose. I really try to be intentional and just hope that everyone else, you know, take that away and want to be more intentional with what they're doing in their lives and their career. So thank you.
No, man, that it's great to see, because yeah, we were having conversations, and you know, when there was a bit of uncertainty, and you sort of navigated through that, and I think you have a clearer sort of direction, and I don't want to speak for you, but it feels like you feel confident in the decision that you made.
I do. I feel really good about the decisions that I made. I wouldn't change it for the world. Like, you know, if an opportunity comes, it will be a rock star opportunity that I would take. But I would not lose sight of putting my focus and intention into EMG at the end of the day. Because if I were to get an opportunity, I wouldn't stop doing networking on purpose. I wouldn't stop doing the things and even the relationships that I've created and built because of my brand. I wouldn't stop that, because I know God's in that. So for me, that's the most important. That job can come and go. He's steady. He's a rock. So,
you talked about the networking on purpose piece, but like, talk about EMG specifically. You mentioned coaching, but like, talk about some of the things that you're able to provide for your clients.
So from a coaching standpoint, most people are like, oh, you know, I just need a mentor, or, you know, somebody to help me through my career and show me kind of the ropes. And part of that is a mentor, to be honest. But as human beings, we also, we tend to like discipline and setting goals and staying on track with them. And that's ultimately what your coach is there for, for you to do. And so I have this focus into leadership coaching, because I think sometimes when people get into leadership, they don't understand what they just walked into. They don't understand that they are going to be the bad guy just because they're a leader. That people aren't going to like them just because they're a leader. And that even though they have the knowledge to excel, to really push the business forward, they now have a much larger responsibility, which is their team. And how do you pull their strengths? And it ultimately really begins with them looking at themselves first and identifying if they can say, here's what I know I'm good at. Here's what I know I probably need some work on, or there's some gaps there. Does your team fill those gaps when it comes to actually executing the business? So identifying that. So that's the leadership coaching piece, and honing in on strengths and self-awareness. I created a leadership model, and within the leadership model, I love acronyms. So leadership is a whole acronym. And so I tell people I help them navigate their ship through their leadership or career journey. And SHIP is broken down to: S is for self-awareness and self-discipline. H is for honoring your values. I is identifying your tribe, and P is protecting your peace. So again, identifying your tribe. I'm talking to my clients and they're like, oh no, I hate networking. So networking on purpose comes from identifying your tribe. And so that is how I've just been able to help and coach clients there. HR consulting piece. HR has just blown up in 2020 in terms of the areas of focus. It started with how can HR continuously become stronger in being a business partner? How can HR become more of a solid sound partner versus a sounding board? And that, is was really the focus.
Yeah.
Then it transitioned to, okay, HR, help the company not, sink right now because of COVID. Help our people. Let's think about and strategize with leaders on how we can engage and build productivity and performance right now. Then now it's a focus on social justice and diversity, equity, and inclusion. And what are we currently doing versus what we really need to be doing?
Right.
So it's just been a wave of emotions, a wave of learning, I would say, for a lot of HR professionals, as well as some of my clients, that they're really trying to figure it out. And for the most part, a lot of the leaders, a lot of HR leaders are winging it, because we all thought 2020, we thought we were going to go back to work at the end of April, early May, when it first hit. Yeah. And then that didn't happen. And they were like, okay, well, we'll give it, maybe midsummer, end of summer. That didn't happen, right? And so we're like, okay, maybe the end of the year. So again, we're just winging it until that time comes, and then it's not showing up. And then as time went on this year, it just revealed to us that this is going to be a part of our lives, period. We're not going to go back to what it used to be 100%.
Right.
Back to in-person, the way it used to be. It's not going to be the same. Some people are dead set on, I'm not working unless it's remote. So there's so many different dynamics. So from a client perspective, that has been kind of the mindset and the shift, and me helping them through that, consulting them through that, that type of deal. So instead of it just being the traditional HR consulting, it has evolved to become really an unpacking session in what we're going to target and how we need to really put this on the calendar and make this the project of the year, so to speak. So, yeah.
Because I think that HR people are not always valued for the roles that they play. Sometimes they are approached with, you mentioned a sounding board. It's like, is this legal? Can we get away with this?
Did the little hand come up? Did you see it?
It did, yeah.
Because when you said HR people are not always valued, I'm like, where can I give him a clap on that?
You were living it. I've been sort of helping in my own way, right? And so like even now with Capnick and sort of being that benefits advisor, the same conversations. You just start to understand what people are dealing with, and it's a lot of the same struggles. But now the HR professionals are being more relied on to sort of be that bridge. Sometimes, and I know we've never worked anywhere like this, but I'm sure we've heard about where the employees don't feel valued, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you kind of almost forget that you need these people to all of the C-suite conversations and goals, and they get together and they get 100 spreadsheets on the big fancy monitor, and they kind of like, this can't happen without your people. And sometimes the people are an afterthought. And HR typically understands that, how well they communicate it and how well it's received. It's kind of company to company. But now it's even more apparent the value and the role that HR plays, right?
Yeah. I would say, like, when I was working in corporate America, I was very fortunate to work with a lot of leaders that understood that value that their employees brought to the table and how valuable they were. So I think I was very fortunate with that. I only had a few leaders that, how sometimes something, but that's not where your heart is at. That transition never happened from the head to the heart for certain leaders, because when certain business decisions needed to be made, that was not taken into consideration. So it's everywhere, unfortunately. But to your point, I think now 2020 has definitely shown not only the value, but just how essential they are. We've heard essential workers so much in 2020 that now they realize how essential they are to the business. Yeah. Like, we value them because they're executing, they're connecting with their clients, and they're doing these things. But now we're remote. And let's say you have 5 people on your team and 3 people are like, you know what, I'm done. I'm not doing this. Now you realize how essential they are, because now you're in a pandemic, you're in a crisis. How are you going to figure out how to do business, how to excel, and you don't have your team?
Yeah.
It's different now. It's, for most people, they'll be like, oh, I'll just find somebody else, as if your people aren't irreplaceable. Yeah. But they're like, oh no, I can replace them. Okay.
Yeah.
Try that in 2020, get some value, get some quality out of it. So it's really forcing leaders to really hone in on, I need to value my people, because they're people, because they are sacrificing, their time and their livelihood. So it's bringing the humanity back into the workplace. Yeah. In a way that wasn't there for a lot of organizations. So
yeah, and even from a business standpoint, right? You're now as HR, I need to go and recruit. Right now, I need to and that's time away from everything else. There's a 30% sort of increase on as far as the amount of time and money. So you're paying somebody whatever you're paying them to replace that person. It's 30% more, or because now you got to recruit them. You got to onboard them, get them trained up, right?
Right. And what does onboarding look like virtually, right?
Exactly.
So, right. So you got to get creative. I think the whole approach, honestly, to talent management is blown up, I feel, because we have to now look at things so much differently, because if you're in talent acquisition, you're not just looking at the pool that's locally here that you may have in your area. You now have the ability, because of the virtual space, to look at people all over the world. And so now you're competing for talent, not locally, not regionally, but globally.
Yeah.
And that it's a different dynamic, I feel. And I think that
organizations need to review and reassess their what-e.
Their employee value proposition.
That's right.
How they are really and truly bringing value to the employees, because now what employees value, I'm not going to say that they're different, because these things are always valuable. But what I think I will say is that it's now become more in their faces, where you have to you have to see it, you have to deal with it. Yeah. That's what 2020 has brought us.
Yeah.
And even though people love their families and love what they do outside of work, everything is just now on the same level. And I would say I'm grateful that has happened in 2020, because it was challenging trying to coach my clients and say, there is no work-life balance. There's life, period. You figure out how work is going to be in your life. And COVID has just said, hey, you got work, you got family, all in the same room. Figure it out.
Yeah.
You're like, no, virtual learning, no.
Right.
So you're just trying to figure it all out. Oh, and you got to cook because your baby's hungry. So you're on a call like, yeah, so you're trying to figure it out, right? So I'm grateful that it's allowed us the opportunity to actually operate in that space, even though it was greatly uncomfortable for all of us. Yeah. It still is. Yeah. A lot of that has not changed. We're thankful for this Christmas break, for ourselves and our children, but it just gives us a different lens on what's really valuable. And as an organization, how can I add value to employees when they're working remote in a pandemic? Once the pandemic passes, how can I still add value?
Right.
So
right.
Those are questions that, organizations, HR professionals, specifically in the talent management and talent acquisition area, are going to be thinking about, because they got to get creative.
Yeah. Yeah. If people didn't feel, validated before, and they were going to the office every day. Imagine how disconnected they feel now, right?
I know. I know.
So the networking on purpose, every third Thursday is when
Yes.
you have those, right?
Yeah. Third Thursday. I was intentional with that too. Listen, third Thursday.
Yeah, a bit of alliteration there.
A little
Um,
bit.
yeah, you're a genius. So the last one was last week
Mhm.
for December. You'll start right back up in January after the new year, right?
Yep.
So
Yep.
if you're wherever you're seeing this, just be on the lookout. There's some awesome events, great speakers, great opportunities to connect with people, and it really does feel like a safe environment. You're doing a great job, Erika.
Thank you. Thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah,
Yeah. So like I said, the feedback that I've gotten, I don't know why I'm really shocked that people are like, no, what you intended for is really happening.
yeah,
Um, my networking on purpose event in September was about this whole, hey, we're still working from home and virtual school is about to happen again because kids are on summer break and now they're back in school. So that was a part of the conversation. My panelist was, I had a principal, I had a parent of like 6 kids, and I also had a therapist, someone who has that social work kind of background and have working with adults and working with kids, understanding kind of that dynamic and what we should probably pay attention to
yeah.
with our kids and our babies and what they need. So that event in September was the first time where someone shared with me that the environment you wanted to create actually happened. And what happened was we talked about the systemic racism and how they're coping as parents and even with kids, even when they're in high school, because they have access to social media in so many different ways and platforms. So it came up. And I had a Caucasian male in my audience, and he put in the chat, he asked a question about, hey, how can I find out more about this book or whatever one of the panelists mentioned? And genuine question, not a big deal, right? And there are people that replied, hey, here's the link, or, here's the book and everything. But someone had to take me back and say, take a step back, Erika, and look at what happened. This Caucasian male felt comfortable enough
Sure.
to ask that question in the midst of so many people who were African American.
Yeah.
And in the climate that we have today, where do you see that? And I didn't recognize that. So, of course, me being me, I started bawling in tears because I was just overwhelmed with the fact that it's happening. And he felt safe enough to
Yeah.
do that, to ask that question. For some people, they're like, oh, that was just a question. That's not a big deal. And for me, that's a huge deal because, again, we're virtual. He
Right.
had his camera on. We saw him.
Right.
You know
Right.
what I'm saying? Like, this is a different dynamic. In the fact that he felt comfortable enough to engage in, hey, can somebody help me understand better? What book is that? Where can I find it? Is huge,
Yeah.
huge. And so I'm very grateful that I had that opportunity to provide that space for that to happen.
No,
So,
that's awesome. And again, kudos to you and what you put in place. And I know that as it transitions back from virtual to in person, the momentum I think that you're building will continue to grow. Like I don't think it's gonna fall off at all. And there
thank you.
may be some virtual and in person. Who knows? But you're
Yeah.
putting a lot of good things in place in that safe space um, for anyone in any application is always super important. And you're doing great work.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So we're gonna wrap, but before we wrap, we are approaching um, an anniversary of sorts. In February 11th, 1997 was when Erika Badu's first album was released by Duism.
Mm-hmm.
97. Can you believe it's been that long?
I remember when her album dropped.
Tell me, give me, you can only, okay, you can only take two songs from this album for the rest of your life. You can only hear two songs for the rest of your life. Tell me which
What would be?
two. You,
Man,
you want me
just
to
two?
you want me to start reading through the track
No,
list?
I know that album. I know that album. Two songs. One would be Apple Tree, for sure.
Oh,
Um, Apple Tree for sure. Um, and I would say Drama.
mm,
Apple Tree and Drama. And I would say that because those are songs that she didn't have or release them as like singles.
mm-hmm.
But I remember being a kid hearing this album. I got so much from Apple Tree because you get a lot from I love music. So let me just start there. Like I love music from the beat to the lyric to the ad libs. I feel like in my second life, I was a professional ad libber. So that's just what I do. You know, right now people don't pay me, you know, to give them ad libs and runs in their songs. But if someone wanted to do that, I will happily create a business to do it. Because that's how passionate I am about ad libs and
Doing it for
runs.
free already. Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, so Apple Tree gave me confidence when I was younger to just be me.
Mm.
So yeah, that was just everything. And then Drama, what I love about it is that it's so applicable to our society and to today. And no matter what year it is, you can hear that song and be like, dang, this is good. She's spitting bars in this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So for me, those two songs would be the two songs that I would love to have for the rest of my life.
You know, I know how it was before. It was always like the B-sides that you really liked. I don't know how you would be. I used to be jealous when they would like make them singles, and like, and then they would come to radio, and I'd be like, man, I've been listening to this for 2 months.
Right.
I didn't know about this until they started playing on the radio, you know.
But I always used to love that, you know, being younger and a song come out you've already heard and you know it. You know what I mean? I used to love being that one person. I know all the words to the song. You don't know them, but I do. Like that. I used to enjoy that because that was my opportunity to provide ad libs and runs.
There you go. There you go. It always comes back to that. No, I was just more like a snob, I think. And I was just like, you're just not listening to this, you know.
Just getting on this? That was you?
Yeah. Yeah, you you just now heard about this? Yeah, but no, thank you. Erika, this has been good, man. This was fun.
Yes, it was. It was. So wait, you have to share what were your two off the album?
Oh. Okay. So if I had to pick two, it would probably be Four Leaf Clover.
I like Four Leaf Clover. Yeah.
And the other side of the game.
That one, that's some grown up.
Yeah, yeah. You know, 97, I probably thought I was, you know, in a part of some serious relationship, right? And it was probably connected to me.
Right, right.
Yeah.
It's the other side of the game, you know?
But you know, looking back on it, the imagery, you know, what she could write. She's a great writer, and I appreciate some of these songs even more now, right? Than I did even back then, because I'm like,
exactly.
There's a lot of talent, you know, and they still stick to the ribs.
Right, they stick to your ribs. They do. They do. Erika Badu is just dope. I mean, we have the same, you know, maiden name, you know what I mean? So I feel like her and I just have a connection off of that.
Yeah.
You can, you know, you want to think that's true or not. It's on you. I know what I feel is true.
You know what? My book club met last week, and we were talking about hypotheticals and people that you feel close to, and somebody said that they felt like Mary J. Blige was like a family member. You know,
I can see that.
they talked about like them going through some things at like a similar time, like when Mary J. had it was announced that she had gotten divorced. Uh, this woman had shortly thereafter, so there were like all these connections, and it's like music does that.
It does.
You know,
it
helps
really,
you grow
really
up.
does.
It helps you cope, helps you mourn. It helps you kind of see the other side of the game.
Right. When
And
I say Mary J. Blige, when she came out with her My Life album, I was so young.
yeah.
I know I was in elementary, but I have two older brothers who also love music to their core. So of course, me being little sister, I love what my brothers do. I'm into what my brothers are doing, and Mary J. was someone that was constantly played, right? So I knew a lot of her songs. So I was singing like Be Happy as if I was really trying to be happy in the third grade. I don't know if I was in third grade, but I was young. But I was singing it to the core. Like, I just want to be happy, like, you know. And it's so funny how you were just saying Erika Badu songs are so applicable now, you know, so many years later. That song is so applicable because I mean, we just want to be happy, you know.
There's like this. We need to do like a cumulative list of songs that the music sounds happy, but they're not happy. Like Be Happy is one of those, right? There's a song by I don't know if it's Teddy Pendergrass by himself or Teddy or if it's Harold Belvin and the Blue Notes, but it's the Bad Luck song.
Okay.
Yeah, it was like a disco #1, and literally the song is called.
But it's not a good
like,
look though.
Bad Luck. It's called Bad Luck, and everything in the song they're talking about how things are just not going well. And then the one I think about a lot is Hey Ya by Outkast. He's pouring his heart out at that song.
But the video doesn't give you that perspective. That's the problem.
Right. You start listening, you go, he hurt. Did somebody check on him? Like, somebody check on him.
Right.
Yeah. So
the video definitely doesn't give you that perspective.
Right.
At all.
Right. So it's just it's funny. Sometimes, you know, you gotta mix it up. You gotta mix up some sad lyrics with some upbeat tempo, so you don't so people don't just, you know, just completely sobbing. You know, you want to give them something to dance to occasionally too, right? So so this is good. I do a pod called Cool Motif, and I'll have to get you back on that so we can just talk just music and nerd out with music.
Cool Motif, okay.
Yeah. So we'll get you back and we'll dissect a song or an artist or something like that. So I'll send you an invite for that here soon.
I'm excited about that. Yes.
Yeah. No, but thank you again for joining me today. This has been super good.
Thanks.
As always, it's always a pleasure.
I appreciate you hitting me up and wanting to do this. So I appreciate your time.
Yeah, and then we'll do it again soon, okay?
Okay.
All right.